here on this Thursday afternoon. Welcome to CBS Sports HQ. We are one day away from the fireworks of the 4th of July, but the fireworks, they've been going on non-stop when it comes to the NBA free agency. It's been crazy. There's still so much more work that needs to be done. Checking out the top available free agents right now. Now, restricted free agent Jonathan Kuminga. He tops our list at CBSSports.com. You can check out that whole list online. If you take a look at number 3, you see Malik Beasley. Well, he is currently the subject of a federal gambling probe, so any deals with him currently are on pause. And restricted free agent Cam Thomas rounds out our top 6. Lucky enough to be joined by Nicole Moss now on the desk. We're going to talk about some of the best landing spots for these remaining free agents. You're busy away on that laptop. It has been nonstop for you, girl. I don't know how you're still standing right now, but let's start at number 1 with Kuminga. Where do you see him fitting in best?
Yeah, so Kuminga is going to be interesting, right? I think that more than likely he's sticking with the Golden State Warriors for a multitude of reasons. I think the biggest reason for me is that obviously the Warriors have a qualifying offer to Kuminga, making him a restricted free agent. They could still re-sign him. We all know how that works. But here's the thing. Kuminga wants to be in a situation where he's going to have a bigger role. That's been the contention between him and this organization, Steve Kerr specifically, is that he's never really found his footing. And as somebody who is a Knicks fan, I know once upon a time we had the same issue with Obi Toppin, and Obi wasn't really able to flourish into his own as a player until he got where? The Indiana Pacers. So it's going to really rely on Kuminga's desire for a larger role, consistent minutes, and a lucrative contract. Now, the Warriors, on the other hand, though, they need to weigh their potential asking price and fit within their current roster. So they have to weigh what Kuminga's going to want against what they're able to provide. And as we know, these aprons have drastically changed the way these teams are doing business. But it seems now on July 3rd, this could change, obviously, that what Kuminga is looking for, there's not a lot of teams who can pay him that. The Warriors are the only team that has the dibs on him right now. It's just a matter if they can come to an agreement with what his role is going to be. I will say this, the Golden State Warriors should start preparing for life after Draymond Green and Steph Curry. And Jonathan Kuminga may be the piece that they can start doing that with. They just have to find a middle ground between what he wants and what they can provide.
Still so young, too. He will be just 23 years old at the start of next season. Next up on our list, I want to ask about Josh Giddey, traded from the Thunder to the Bulls in June of 2024 for Alex Caruso. He had career highs in many categories last season.
Yeah.
What do you think is going to happen?
This one's hard because the Bulls are in the best position to give him what he wants money-wise, right? But when you talk about what Josh Giddey is looking for, obviously it's a paycheck. Let's be very clear about that. But I think also there are teams out in the league that necessarily aren't going to be contenders. They may not even be playoff teams, but neither are the Chicago Bulls. But they are looking to kind of rebuild and go younger. And the team on my list for him, if it's not Chicago, the Washington Wizards. We see the moves that they have made so far. They're not making these catastrophic, life-changing, franchise-changing moves, but they are trying to get younger and trying to figure it out as they go. So if it's not Chicago for me, I think the Wizards would be a good spot for him.
That would be a nice landing spot for sure. Up next, we have Al Horford, an unrestricted free agent. The other two were restricted. Entering his 19th season, 39 years old.
You know him well, Jenny Dell. You know him well.
So what happens with Horford?
Horford's interesting. I think the unfortunate reality of the situation is the Jason Tatum injury has kind of just thrown the Boston Celtics in complete disarray. This was a team that was in prime position to run it back. This devastating injury to their star has kind of forced this new ownership to really start looking at life, the next iteration of the Boston Celtics. And we already saw the movement with Porzingis. We already saw the movement with Drew Holiday. And Al Horford's an interesting piece. Veteran guy, phenomenal at his position. In Boston last season, averaged 9 points, 6.5 rebounds, 2 assists, 42% shooting from the field, and almost 37% from the three. I think his shooting would be ideal for the Golden State Warriors front court with Butler and Green, and he's also a guy that's not going to cost you a lot of money. You could pay him the vet minimum, maybe a little bit above that. It's not going to put the Warriors over the edge. We already know the Lakers are probably out of this conversation after signing DeAndre Ayton. I think if it's not Boston, it's probably the Golden State Warriors. That would be the best fit for him.
Any concern with his age getting up there a little bit?
No, I mean, Al Horford's not a guy who's going to log a lot of minutes. He's not a starter. He's the guy that comes off the bench. He's the guy that kind of gets that movement with that second unit. But the best thing about Al Horford is, yes, he is a particular age, but he is so reliable that he is a guy you want in your locker room. And also, if we're going to be realistic, it could also come down to the fact that Al Horford just maybe retires. You mentioned his age. He's won a championship. He's had a lucrative career. Obviously, I believe he's going into the Hall of Fame. That's a big debate in the NBA world, whether or not he will or he won't. But we always forget when we talk about guys in this stage of their career, there's always a chance that they don't want to go elsewhere. They just will hang it up before that happens. But I think the Warriors are a good fit if he ultimately decides not to do that.
Yeah, 2024 NBA champ with the Boston Celtics. Had to throw that one out there. 5-time All-Star. So yeah, he's done his part, that's for sure. What about a player like Quentin Grimes? So you look at his numbers last year, 21.9 points per game, 5 rebounds, 4 assists in 28 games with the Sixers. Dealing with multiple injuries, though, last season, where do you see him ending up?
I would have loved to bring him back to the Knicks. That would have been an ideal situation for me. I just don't see that's feasible because Quentin Grimes is looking to get paid. And obviously, as we know, the 76ers acquired him from the Dallas Mavericks via a trade. And his performance with the 76ers, especially because of how injured this team was, when you talk about Joel Embiid and Paul George and those guys, really put him in a different light. He put him kind of in the center and increased his scoring average. He has raised his profile. He's gotten more attractive to other teams. I think, again, when we talk about a landing spot, if it's not the 76ers, who more than likely will try to retain him, I think the Wizards are another team to look at. They are a team that's trying to build young, talented players or trying to bring in young, talented players to kind of revamp this just disastrous tenure of the Washington Wizards for I don't even know how many years. It feels like most of my existence. And he's 25 years old, so he fits that profile, but they're going to have to weigh his potential against their financial limitations, and that's where things get sticky. So again, if it's not the 76ers who can retain him and more than likely will, for me, the Washington Wizards would be a nice fit.
You're talking about the Wizards needing to get a little bit of help. Is there a team, before we move on, that you feel like that's still out there that needs a lot of work still at this point?
I mean, it depends. Like, are we talking teams that are trying to do something, or are we talking teams that just need to rebuild? Because the Brooklyn Nets are a disaster. And I just realized, I know Boney's probably yelling at me in the control room right now. Josh Giddey was to the Nets if he didn't go back to Chicago. So I'm sorry, Boney, don't yell at me. It's a lot to remember off the top of my head here. But I think the Nets are interesting. I think the Wizards, the Bulls, but these are all teams that, for lack of a better term, are in a black hole when it comes to their future. It's going to take them a very long time to be back in the conversation. I think these aprons and the lack of money going around the league has made it very difficult for a lot of these other teams that are in contention to do other things. The Timberwolves are a perfect example of that. I think they should have made a move, but they have financial limitations, especially since re-signing Naz Reid and Julius Randle, that have prevented them from making their team a next level better.
We're going to be talking about some of those teams in our next segment. You mentioned the Nets there. That brings us to Cam Thomas. Career highs in points per game, rebounds, assists. Played 25 games there for the Nets before he lost the remainder of the season with that left hamstring strain. What happens with a guy like Cam?
Cam Thomas is more than likely coming back to Brooklyn. I mean, he has made it clear he wants to return to Brooklyn, and Brooklyn's really the only team that has the cap space to afford him. He's probably looking for anywhere between $80 to $100 million over 4 years. And like I said, the Nets have ample cap space and are likely to offer Cam Thomas a competitive deal. Now, they obviously, I believe, view him as a cornerstone player and are motivated to retain him. And I just don't see a market where Cam Thomas is going to get, A, the playing time that he gets in Brooklyn, B, kind of the centerpiece option that he gets in Brooklyn, and more importantly, the money that he gets in Brooklyn, because everyone's broke. Nobody has any cash to spend, and if they do, they are trying to retain it and maintain themselves under the second apron. So Brooklyn's in a very nice situation. Like I started off by saying, they're essentially bidding against themselves for Cam Thomas. I would be very surprised if he landed anywhere else but Brooklyn.
Brooklyn must be happy about that. Listen, you gotta get some goodness over there, Ash.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a Knicks fan, so I'm fine.
Of course you are. We got more coming with Ashley Nicole Moss, but you can also check her out on Triple Threat. Do you have enough stuff to talk about?
I think we have enough. Everything broke loose after we recorded the show, but we'll have enough for next week. But listen, Chris Walker had a crazy take on this week's show.
Ooh.
Definitely check it out.
That's
for
a good
sure.
little teaser. Scan that QR code wherever you take in your favorite pods. You can watch on YouTube as well.